I have come to a sad conclusion of history. The fact is, even if Lincoln survived, or better yet, have not have not gotten even assassinated in the first place, or the attempt was stopped earlier in John Booth's career, it would have not stopped the Compromise of 1877. Like literally, his death over when it comes to the timeline of history had minimal effects when it comes to the Compromise of 1877. Now, alas, if Lincoln survived, or better yet, not have gotten assassinated in the first place, I could see him probably making the first years of the Reconstruction easier, definitely more easier than President Johnson. I could definitely see him passing the 14th and 15th Amendments much earlier with his consent rather than fighting it like President Johnson did. But overall, and I could definitely see him helping out the Freeman's Bureau far more than President Johnson ever did since he made it. But overall, when it comes to the past, I would say 12 years or so, the timeline would just revert back to its normal process. Like nothing new would have happened based on Lincoln's survival. Here's why. Lincoln and Johnson had more in common than people would like to admit. Lincoln wanted only 10% of the Southern population to swear that they would swear to the Union and thus be admitted back into the Union. Similar to Johnson, who had such low percentages when it comes to Southerners swearing to the Union, quite like Lincoln, but where they would differ is I could see Lincoln being much more open to sending troops down to the South to quash race riots and so forth. I could definitely see him, and that's where a little bit of Grant is in him. Granted, I could see him far more sending down troops to quash the race riots and the rebellions far faster than Johnson, but overall, the acceptance and the absorbing of the Southerners into the Union would have happened far more faster under Lincoln's presidency than it did in reality. And that would plant the seeds of the rebels coming so forth in, let's say, 1868, because I only see Lincoln during this timeline only having a 8-year presidency, um, you know, following in the footsteps of George Washington, a man he looked up to. I could see Grant more or less running for president since he was very popular back then as a general, and he's definitely going to win the 1868 presidency, and he's going to carry Lincoln's legacy as he does in this timeline. But alas, in 1874, when we had this huge crisis, this huge economic crisis, that's when the Democrats came into office, and then so forth and so on. I could see just basically the timeline reverting back to what it is as it is today because the economy really sucked in 1874 and the Democrats capitalized on that and they held the House and I believe the Senate at this time from 74 to 77. And that's when you get Rutherford B. Hayes, a person who, unlike Lincoln, was seen as more of a moderate, and unlike Grant, was seen definitely more as a moderate. And also, I like to put in the fact that Grant, in this timeline, would still have the corruption of his administration happen, which definitely tarnished his administration, along with the 1874 economic panic, which definitely destroyed like the Republican Party, so forth and so on at that time. But yes, in 1876, I can see the Republicans still running Rutherford B. Hayes, as he had a very what you call it, a very good reputation back then. But I can see him barely winning, like he does in this timeline, barely winning. And of course, it would be a close run or election, and thus there would be the bargain of 1877 as of this timeline, and a retreating of the troops back to the north, because back then they were only in like three states at this point, um, because of um, because of the economy and because of the budget cuts that happened when it came to Reconstruction. Uh, so I could see them definitely being repealed and being put back into the South, especially with the Congress being Democratic. They're not funding these campaigns anymore. So basically, with a Lincoln surviving or not getting shot, it would just basically revert back to what it is this timeline. Like that's how the future would fix itself, because what happened in 1876 was greater than any one man. It was greater than a Lincoln. It was greater than a Grant. It was basically the economic policies and failures of 1874, contrast with the fact that the Democrats regained back the House. And also Grant, I could see no change in who he would pick in his Congress, and thus there was be a corruption that happens that really throws dirt in Grant's name. And yes, so nothing would relatively change with Lincoln being surviving as president. So yeah, it just basically reverts back to what it is today. So yeah, that's basically it. Nothing would further change. Maybe a easier, much more gradual process when it comes to Reconstruction. But alas, no, we will still get a Rutherford B. Hayes, and then the timeline would just go back to normal. We will still have the period in which 1877 through the 60s, black people were oppressed and basically marginalized. Um, I can definitely see Abraham Lincoln living a long, prosperous life, returning back to Illinois or Kentucky. Uh, Maybe he gets a chance to see Grant die, or maybe he dies at the same particular time as Ulysses S. Grant. But overall, I can definitely see Abraham Lincoln be still a beloved character, a beloved president, retiring somewhere. I don't see him taking a political position afterwards, as he was sick of politics. But yeah, nothing would change. The corruption of 1877 would still happen. Abraham Lincoln would still definitely be beloved. He's on the $5 bill. Grant on the 50. Goodbye.